Hi everyone, my name is Gail Rowden, and I wanted to share a lesson I've learned with all of you. So, my lesson is that success for me in anything that I really desire to do or do well, 75% of the battle is perseverance and showing up. One example I'd like to share with you guys of how I learned that was nearly 2 years ago now when I started my first quarter of classes at Walla Walla Community College. I knew that eventually I wanted to apply to the nursing program, but I had never gone back to school. And being a nurse was a far cry from being a bartender and waitress, which is the only thing I had experience doing up until that point. So I signed up for my first quarter of classes with my instructor, and I left that day feeling more prepared and more at ease than when I had walked in. I was very anxious and feared beginning a journey that I might not be successful at. But I showed up anyway. I showed up, I got the appointment, I got the schedule, I filled out the FAFSA. I felt anxious, I was unsure if I was capable of doing these things that I thought I wanted to do, but I just showed up. So from there, I realized I had 4 quarters of math that I had to do just to take the one class that was required of me for the nursing program. Knowing I was starting from the very, very bottom level of math was discouraging because it was over an academics year worth of work that I had to dedicate time to, and therefore taking away from pre-nursing core classes, making my journey longer essentially. But I showed up anyway. So my first math class I took, it was very challenging for me. It was the lowest level math available at the college. I did pass the class, and I was recommended I passed the class with a passing grade, and that means that as a student, it was up to me whether I was then to go into a level of math that would then take me closer to my goal and ultimately be quite a jump, an academic jump from what I had just done and take a lot of dedication to get through, or to take a midway class and have more of a sure sense of success that I could get through that class. The teacher did recommend that I take that midway class, that bridge class between the where you start and Math 75, which was still not all I needed to do. So there was this impending doom of another class that I needed to take for this one subject that I just couldn't seem to beat. I told my advisor, I want to skip the bridge class. I want to take the harder class. I'm willing to do the work. I will show up. I had learned from my first math class at the college that if you just show up, it might not be the best grade you've ever had. It may not be what you would consider a flourishing, beautiful experience by any means. But if you show up and you try hard, you're likely to be okay. So with that attitude, I moved forward, and my advisor said, it's up to you. You can go ahead and do that. So I catapulted into this next class, which was 10 times harder than the first one I took. Really, I could see why they wanted me to work my way to that class. But I was already there, and I just didn't want to have to take it over or fail. I just knew I needed to work really hard. Ultimately, even at the end of the quarter, with the grade that I had and the score I got on the final, it was unsure whether I had passed that class or not. I had worked really hard and I had showed up every single day. And I ended up passing that class. And even though it was hard to show up every day and do something that I wasn't good at and that I didn't enjoy, I knew that it was getting me somewhere, and that if I just showed up, that I would probably be okay. And I was okay. Now I was ready to move into my third math class at WWCC. I headed into my third math class, and I felt better about my academic capabilities with mathematics, but I knew that overall I was at best an average math student. But I just had to get through these math courses. I showed up every day and I worked really hard, and something happened in the middle of the quarter. And it's something that math teachers actually turn out that they're quite familiar with. And it's this breaking point where if a student struggles and struggles and struggles with math, but they continue to show up and apply the concepts, a lot of times for students, there's a point where the struggle begins to break. And what happens is you find a place of ease and things begin to come easier. I was experiencing this in my third math class halfway through the quarter. By the end of the quarter, my teacher told me that if she had to take a day off, I could have taught that math class. Never in my life did I think that someone would say that to me about a math class. But what was even more shocking than that was the amount of pride I felt. I guess feeling that proud of being good at math was shocking for me because it wasn't even something I enjoyed or ever intended to be good at. It's just something that I white-knuckled and showed up and fought every day just to get through. So becoming good at it and then liking the feeling of being good at it was even more shocking. So finally, after that quarter, I headed into my last and final math class that was required of me. And I was pretty relaxed by this point, and I finished well in the class, and I finished strong. And ultimately, what I learned was everything, you can apply that mathematic concept to everything. Things can only stay hard for so long if you're showing up, doing your job, doing your best. You're not always going to have the best attitude, and some days you leave crying, but if you show up and you do your best consistently, the amount of effort or hardship that something takes or brings cannot stay that difficult. So I believe that success, a huge part of success, is perseverance. Just showing up, choosing not to listen to the anxiety, and doing your best. I have continued to apply that concept to every class I've had since then that I was unsure of my academic capabilities. And I continue to apply it now as I think about how I'm applying. I have just sent in my nursing application a couple weeks ago this year. Here we are, 2 years later. I'm ready to apply. This is my last quarter of prerequisites. And I continue to remind myself of that experience every time I wonder if I can do something or not, if I'm capable of doing something or not. So I think that maybe could help another person, or a lot of other people, as it continues to help me. So thank you for listening to the lesson I learned.